Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We begin this morning with the latest developments in the war in Ukraine. Breaking overnight, Ukrainian officials announcing an agreement with Russia on a ceasefire to allow for the evacuation of a number of cities in the eastern half of the country. One of those cities is Sumy, which has been under siege by Russian forces for days. Ukraine's Ministry of Internal Affairs says at least 9 people have died, including 2 children. This comes one day after Ukraine rejected Russia's offer of 5 humanitarian corridors, which would have allowed people to leave several major cities, but most of those corridors led to Russia or its close ally, Belarus. Despite this, the flood of refugees out of Ukraine has been nonstop. This morning, a staggering statistic from the UN, 2 million people have now fled the country since the war started. It's the fastest exodus Europe has seen since World War II.
For many families, leaving is not an option, like one mother of a baby born 6 weeks premature spoke with our Lester Holt from a hospital in Lviv.
Will you someday tell Anna about the world that she was born into?
Of course. She's a child of a war. Basically.
Overnight, this dramatic video from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, video he took of himself inside his presidential office in the heart of Kyiv, essentially daring the Russians to come and get him. NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter is in western Ukraine and begins our coverage this morning on the start of those humanitarian evacuations.
Hi, good morning. That's right. For the 4th day in a row, residents in some of these hardest hit towns and cities in the east of the country are waking up with the hope of a ceasefire, with the hope of possibly getting out today. So all eyes are on Sumy. It is a town in the northeast of the country. It is east of Kyiv. It's north of Kharkiv, right near the Russian border. It was hit incredibly hard overnight. We have information from the Ukrainian Interior Ministry. 21 people were killed, including children. Now, all eyes are on that because that is the only town where the Ukrainians and the Russians have agreed to a humanitarian corridor to evacuate civilians from that town. That route goes from Sumy and it goes south to Poltava. It does not go west to the relative safety of the country where I am. It doesn't even really get people into the center of the country. Now, Russia had proposed 4 additional humanitarian corridors that left other besieged cities in the east of the country. The problem for the Ukrainians is those humanitarian corridors led directly to Belarus or Russia. And for the Ukrainians, that was absolutely not an option. Now, from the Ukrainian side, they are also saying this morning we have information that the Russian side is preparing to violate this corridor. They prepare manipulations with the routes to make people go in a different direction. So we will be watching this first humanitarian corridor, these ICRC buses leaving Sumy very, very closely. We are in touch with the ICRC. The other big question is whether or not, as people go out, humanitarian aid is going in. But the real goal for all of these people, these civilians who are in these besieged towns like Sumy, is to get to the relative safety of the west of the country where we are. Now, we just got new numbers from the UNHCR. 2 million refugees have actually left the country. That doesn't even count all the IDPs, all the internally displaced people who either can't get out of their cities, who have moved to other cities, or who are in Lviv, which is where we are right now. Apparently, according to the mayor, 200,000 people are in Lviv. Not everyone wants to become a refugee. Some people really believe that Ukraine may win this. They may be able to return home, and they are planning to stay here and fight it out. But as that number grows, it becomes more and more unsustainable.
All right, Molly, thank you.
Let's get more on the situation on the ground this morning in Ukraine. Clint Watts joins us. He's a distinguished research fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute and an NBC News national security analyst. Clint, good to have you back with us. We love having you at this board to walk us through everything. So first, let's talk about these evacuations, either underway or being organized in a number of cities this morning. You made a really good point. I heard you just a little bit ago this morning about when those routes were just to Russia or Belarus that could essentially be used as propaganda there. Ukraine shut those down. Walk us through what we know now about the situation surrounding evacuations there and these new corridors.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm putting up the proposed Russian corridors just to give you an idea of how ludicrous this was. They do depict the cities that are really under siege. Key ones here, Sumy, Kharkiv, and Mariupol, all 3 of those cities involved in major combat. And this is where you're seeing lots of indirect fire, airstrikes, essentially siege warfare, destruction of infrastructure. These routes were put forth by the Russians. Obviously, no one in Ukraine wants to evacuate to Russia or Belarus. And almost certainly this would be used as some sort of propaganda that Ukrainians are having to flee their home country because they can't be taken care of. This is a classic propaganda line. I think more importantly, what you're seeing is just in terms of the attacks that are going on, these cities to the east have a very different situation from even Kyiv, and that this is a long journey across here to get to the western part of the country. Even if they did, they would probably not have a lot of supplies there. That's why you're seeing the refugee situation pick up, just like So very dire situation here in the east for those that couldn't get out before the invasion started.
Absolutely. Clint, let's now talk sort of the state of the fight. So the Pentagon has confirmed that all of Russia's forces committed to the invasion are now inside of Ukraine. We're also learning that Russia has recruited Syrian fighters to join their attacks on Ukraine's more urban areas. But then let's talk about the Ukraine side of this. We saw that incredible video, President Zelensky inside his office in the heart of Kyiv, still safely in Ukrainian control, obviously exposing his location at the same time. I also just heard you mention this morning that Western fighters have really just started to arrive, people who've decided to come to Ukraine to fight for them. What does this all of this say about the state of where Russia is at in trying to capture major cities like Kyiv?
I would really like to break it, I think, into three parts. Week one was the Hail Mary, 3 fronts and a coup, trying to topple the country very quickly. Week two has become conventional warfare, essentially assault. And I think week three becomes the sustainment and the slog, and essentially each party, Russia and Ukraine, using its logistics, manpower, food, fuel, and ammunition to try and drive at each other and gain ground. Here in Kyiv, this is, you might have seen clips from Richard Engel. He's in Irpin, which is essentially this area here. Russian forces making some small advances in terms of tanks and mechanized forces, but again, not making massive gains. They don't have the infantry to support, and they're meeting stiff resistance. I think for the Ukrainians, this is a very dangerous time. They're running out of logistics naturally, being on the front lines. Can they stay resupplied? Separately, as we zoom back out, I think you're seeing what happens when you just have mass. Essentially, if you're going to use a conventional force, over time, you're seeing multiple axes of advance here, here, and here. So there are some reports this morning that in western Kyiv, they're actually putting some force out. That would mean they'd be able to essentially surround the city. They could do siege warfare then, like Mariupol. Separately, though, I do want to point out, like, for all the Russian advances, and they are steadily making some advances now, they don't secure their rear areas, and they can't essentially do logistics over time without being weak. And separately, this area here in Kharkiv. Kharkiv is very close to the Russian border. Yesterday, there were reports that in Chuiv, right here, the Ukrainians are taking back land, which would be incredible. At least it's contested. That it's contested at all, that close to the Russian border, really points to the big trouble that I think you're seeing across the country, here in the southwest and the south. While they are taking forces, they're still bypassing cities, and they're leaving the rear area exposed. Very difficult, very hard fought it's going to be in the coming weeks and days.
Hey, Clint, you mentioned over in the Far East in Kharkiv that there seemed to be taking back some land. There was also these reports yesterday. Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Agency said that it had killed one of Russia's top generals in fighting outside that city. What do we know about that?
Yeah, so reports last night when I was wrapping up were that a general major, essentially what we call a major general named Gerasimov of the 41st, was killed here around Kharkiv. This is a major battle area. For some reason, they're really meeting stiff resistance. They were not prepared for it. They're losing lots of aircraft in this area as well. It would be remarkable for them to lose such a high-ranking individual. Also yesterday, reports of a top general, Air Force general of the Russian Air Force being shot down. We don't know if he was killed, don't know the circumstances. But to have these major figures there, the big difference is when officers are killed versus the enlisted, essentially as shock troops on the ground. Very different situation. They do go back home. They do get honored. They do get buried. This is part of their elite professional officer class, whereas the low-ranking soldiers, oftentimes, no one knows what ever happened to them. So I think this is interesting to watch because that cannot be hidden back at home. That's going to have a dramatic effect on the Russian population. Very good point. Clint Watts, thank you so much. Your expertise and your ability to walk us through this is so appreciated as we kick off this hour. Let's go
go to Washington now, and NBC News White House correspondent Carol Lee. So, Carol, we now know the U.S. is collecting evidence of possible war crimes and human rights abuses by Russia in Ukraine. What's the White House saying about this investigation, and does it change anything about how the Biden administration is handling its dealings with Russia?
Well, Joe, White House officials are saying that they're appalled by what they're seeing in Ukraine in terms of how Russia is, in their words, targeting civilians, civilian infrastructure, and not sticking to the traditional international rules of war, where they would be targeting military installations. So White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Friday said that the administration is conducting an internal review, collecting evidence of what they say is potential war crimes. Now, the real question here is whether they have the evidence. The bar is that it has to show that Russia is intentionally doing this, not just targeting civilians, but as you'll recall, the alleged targeting of that nuclear facility last week, if that was seen as intentional. So they're gathering the evidence. Whether or not they make a formal accusation with the International Criminal Court, for instance, is a real open question, though, Joe.
The question is always, what can NATO, what can Western countries do to try and stop this or slow it down? We know they've been resistant to establish a no-fly zone over Ukraine. One alternative solution has been a proposed plan to send Soviet-era fighter jets to Ukraine through Poland. It appears there might be a snag there. What can you tell us about what the White House is saying about that?
Yeah, this is something that administration officials in the last few days had started to be expressing an openness to publicly. And now what we're learning is that behind the scenes, according to administration officials, there's not a lot of momentum within the administration for this issue. And it's for a couple of reasons. One is there are concerns in the U.S. and Poland that this is something that Russia could see as escalatory and potentially as direct involvement in the conflict in Ukraine. There's also this question of the U.S. would have to replace those Polish planes with F-16s. Officials say there's not a surplus of F-16s in the U.S., and so that's raising real concerns. And then just logistically, how they would get the planes into the hands of Ukrainians. Not only that, but how then do they make sure the Ukrainians know how to fly the planes, they do maintenance on the planes, fuel, all of those questions. So officials behind the scenes are saying that this is something that is not necessarily happening anytime soon.
All right, Carol Lee in Washington. Carol, thank you so much.
Let's now check in with Z Gaiman. She's a Ukrainian mother of two who we spoke with last week. She's been taking shelter inside a church basement with her children, as you may remember. Z, thank you so much for joining again. First, of course, I just want to ask, how have you been? How have your kids been since we last spoke? Has anything changed with your situation?
We made a decision to move from the church to my mom, just to minimize the numbers of places to worry about, and it has been different. Kids are starting to catch on that this is not just a fun vacation and holidays and like a spring break. So we need to reestablish the routine. That's the major thing, because all the routines were lost. Education and whatnot. But in general, the situation, I think for us, it's easier being here because their grandma and grandpa are here. And also we call it a Noah's bunker, because we've got 2 cats and a rat that we just collected from. The rat is our friends. We have our cat, and there's also mom's cat. So
Noah's bunker.
It's an interesting experience.
Oh, that's a sweet name, and I'm happy to hear a little bit of a restoration of normality being with Grandma and Grandpa. What was the journey like there? How far was it for you to go from the church basement to your mom's house? Did it feel dangerous when you were on that route, and how does it feel outside of the home now?
My husband right now is in the territorial defense, so he was the one who took us. So he knew how to navigate all the block posts. It took us about an hour probably to drive around 15 miles. And it's interesting to see, because we were sheltering in the church for over a week and we didn't see major action. And here we saw the actual broken tanks and the different cars that were destroyed by the either from our side or from the enemy side. There are also lots of block posts. At first it feels scary, but then when you realize the guys are really prepared to take everything on, so it makes us feel somewhat safe to know that the territorial defense and the army are ready for anything, pretty much.
Yeah, Z, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. Our viewers may remember that your husband volunteered for the Ukrainian defense team. We learned that last time we spoke with you. You mentioned you've seen him. He helped you move from that church to your mom's house. Have you heard anything about what he's experienced on the front lines, and how's he doing and his team?
He did mention that at times it's very scary because he is a peaceful person in general, despite the fact that he wants to protect the country and protect our family. But at the same time, the group that he is with, the people are motivated and they know why they're doing it. So I think that's the main difference between the Russian army and Ukrainian army and territorial defense, is that we know why we're doing it. We're protecting our land, whereas those guys, sometimes it feels like they have no clue.
Yeah, we have heard quite a few reports of that, actually. Z Guyman, thank you so much. We are thinking of you. We will continue to check in with you. We're thinking of your kids as well, all of you there in Noah's bunker. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe.
Thank you.
The Ukrainian exodus is showing no signs of letting up. UN officials say 2 million people have already fled the country, making it the fastest growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Since Ukraine has barred fighting-age men from leaving, women and children make up most of that number. Poland is seeing the most traffic. The border guard there says Poland has accepted 1.2 million refugees so far, including 140,000 people yesterday alone. NBC News senior national correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from one of those busy border crossings in Poland. So, Jay, set the scene. What are you seeing today?
Yeah. Joe, it's overwhelming, the amount of people who continue to pour in here. We're at the Medica crossing. This basically the crossroads between war in Ukraine and safety here in Poland. Take a look. Here's how it works. People walk through this walking path and up, and buses come at different times. There's no real schedule, obviously, but they come and gather people as best they can, move them to the train station, and from the train station they can move further into Poland and eventually out and into Europe if that's the case. But what you hear from so many of these families, and you hit on it, Joe, you've got mostly women and children walking through here. They've gathered what they can. They've come to safety here. Now what? Most of them don't know where they're going, what they're going to do when they get there, and how they're going to move forward. And that's one of the most sobering parts of all of this, to see these families just really in limbo, and many of them leaving a loved one, a brother, a husband, a son behind. And so that's what they are dealing with. When they get here, they've got supplies. They've got water here, food. You can grab blankets, jackets, shoes, and many are taking advantage of that. They need these things. They weren't able to bring all the things that they have. But again, it's just a frantic move to try and save their children, and then moving forward how to do that. And that's something that not only these families are dealing with, but the organizers of these types of crossings and the volunteers that show up, all trying to find ways to answer those questions.
Jay, I know you got an inside look at a shelter there. Thousands of Ukrainians are staying, at least for now. What did you see there? Yeah. Do they have enough room?
No, they don't. We were in a 5,000-bed shelter, and the director told me if I had 10,000 beds, it still wouldn't be enough. So you see people littering the floors. You see families huddled on one cot, 3 and 4 people. You see people who can't find a place to sit or lay down, so they're standing and walking around. We were at a train station yesterday, and the tunnelways that lead to the different platforms suddenly became areas where people just huddled. They couldn't go on anymore, so they sit down. They go to sleep. sleep. They sleep for a couple of hours, wake up, and try and figure what's new. It's not going to be pretty television, Joe, but I want to spin around, if we can, Carlos, and Carlos behind the camera here, and just show you this walking path and what's happening here. This is the path where people are physically walking from Poland, from the Ukraine here into Poland, and you can see they're just waves of people continuing to come through. And again, this isn't a pretty television, but this isn't a pretty situation either. And so I want to make sure you get the sense of how this thing works. It's just a gauntlet of families walking through and grabbing what they can and moving forward. So that's the kind of situation that just continues to play out over and over here, and it's going to continue to grow for the next several weeks, Joe.
And Jay, what's interesting is it's not just a one-way path. We've heard these incredible stories of Ukrainians living abroad, even volunteers from America and other parts of the world traveling to Ukraine to fight. Have you heard of many people who are going the other way, into danger, into Ukraine?
Absolutely. Talked to several. Yesterday, talked to a couple of guys. One from Great Britain who came here, a retired soldier who said he was just compelled to come, that he believes there are war crimes going on here. He believes that civilians are being targeted, and he couldn't stand by and watch. And so he gathered his things. He came across, and he said he's going to fight. He'll go wherever they need him. He'll do whatever they need. He says that he's just here to try and help in any way he can. Also talked with a medic yesterday, a young man who was a former Army engineer who was studying archaeology, of all things, in Rome, kept seeing the reports here and felt compelled to come and help. He's a trained medic, and so that's what he's doing. He's crossed over into Ukraine, and he's going to help any way he can.
Incredible examples of bravery. Jay Gray, thank you for giving us a firsthand look at what all these families are experiencing as they cross over the border. Thank you, Jay. Coming up, U.S. lawmakers set to discuss worldwide threats as the war in Ukraine intensifies. A look at how the conflict could impact a hearing today on Capitol Hill.
And the new normal will take you inside the CDC as more states lift their strictest COVID restrictions. That's next on Morning News Now.
Welcome back. Our coverage out of Ukraine will continue in just a few minutes. This morning, the UN says that 2 million people have now fled the country. We'll have more just ahead, but there is some other news we want to get to this morning as well.
Yeah, starting with today, the House Intelligence Committee is set to hold its annual hearing on the worldwide threats to the United States. And this year's hearing, of course, comes as the U.S. is impacted by the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. NBC News correspondent Leanne Caldwell joins us now and has more on what we can expect. Leanne, good morning. So first, of course, outline these threats for us. What might we hear? What does the committee hope to accomplish here? And also some news I do want to get to you on, which is that we've got this new bill looking to crack down on Russians who are attempting to evade sanctions. Give us the details on that as well.
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. So a lot going on Capitol Hill today. As far as this worldwide threats hearing, this is something that happens every year. Leaders of the intelligence community come to Congress and tell them about what the biggest risks are for the United States. Often it's North Korea, often it's Iran. A lot of times it's climate change, which is all expected to be spoken about today. But the key thing that will be central to this hearing is the Russia-Ukraine crisis. We know that the administration took this very interesting policy of unveiling intelligence leading up to the war, what Russia was going to do. So we know that is going to be a focus today. Now, separately, there's separate discussions on making sure that Russians do not evade sanctions through the digital currency, the cryptocurrency market. Well, Senator Elizabeth Warren is drafting legislation, and it attempts to prohibit that, to crack down on people who try to evade these sanctions. Now, it's just in the planning stages, but this topic has gotten a lot of bipartisan discussion over the past couple of weeks. And so legislation will be coming very soon, Savannah.
And Leanne, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is leading, of course, we've been talking a lot about this, to record high gas prices in many places. And the Biden administration is getting criticized when it comes to oil exports. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there's a couple angles to this story here. First, Congress is really pushing the administration to do something and ban imports from Russia on gas and petroleum products. The administration hasn't acted just yet. They've been hesitant to move unilaterally without Europe. All signs are pointing to the fact that they're going to, but Congress is unveiling legislation and hoping to act this week to really push the administration to ban those Russian exports into the United States. Now, separately, the administration is talking with countries, including Venezuela, to make up the loss of oil in the United States that we're not going to be getting from Russia. And those countries include Venezuela. And President Biden is getting a lot of criticism, not only from Republicans, but some Democrats, too, saying that another autocratic regime is not where the U.S. should be getting its oil, Savannah.
Something to certainly watch for there. Finally, Leanne, I do want to ask you this before we let you go. Congress has given final approval to a bill that makes lynching a hate crime. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it does exactly that. It's something that Congress has been trying to do for years. Most recently, it has been stalled by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Now he is a co-sponsor of the bill. It was changed to appease his concerns. But over the years, this has gotten more and more bipartisan support until it had overwhelming support. And Senator Rand Paul was the only one to oppose it. But now he has come on board. So for the first time, lynching is a federal crime. Savannah.
All right, Leanne Caldwell, thank you so much.
In a win for Democrats, the Supreme Court rejected an emergency appeal from Republicans in North Carolina and Pennsylvania. We're looking to block court-imposed voting maps. Lawmakers in both states typically draw the congressional maps, but after lawsuits challenge those maps, state courts actually established the new district boundaries. The North Carolina case was closely watched by voting rights groups and election law experts. That state Supreme Court argued the congressional map must not, quote, dilute any individual's vote on the basis of partisan affiliation. We have some stunning new findings about COVID-19. British investigators found that even mild COVID cases are linked to brain damage in some patients. We're talking about subtle brain tissue damage, losses in areas tied to smell, loss of cognitive function, and faster brain aging. All of it happening during at least the first few months following a COVID infection.
Meanwhile, though, many states are lifting mask mandates as cases ease across the country. As part of our series, The New Normal, NBC News senior national correspondent Kate Snow got access to the front lines of the CDC.
We were able to get exclusive access, not just to the CDC in Atlanta, but to a trip in St. Louis that the director of the CDC, Rochelle Walensky, was taking. We caught up with her there. We really wanted to get some answers to the questions that I think most Americans have. Where are we at right now when it comes to this pandemic? And is it over?
It has been a hard 2 years.
Dr. Henry Walk is taking us to the CDC's Emergency Operations Center.
This is the nerve center, really, of the CDC response.
Before the pandemic, it would have been packed. For now, many CDC employees are still working remotely.
This is a measure of the impact of COVID-19.
But in most of the country, things are shifting. Green means low community levels. Yellow is medium. Orange is high.
We're seeing more green, more of the yellow, and hopefully, good news. Absolutely. Hopefully, we'll see in the next month or two that the majority of the country actually will be green.
Just days after we visited, the map got greener.
Trips like this to Missouri, this is a new thing. This is among my first. It's really been amazing.
We met up with CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky as she visited a clinic in St. Louis.
Here's the big question. Is it over?
I don't know. And that's, the honest truth. We certainly hope so. We certainly have a lot of immunity in the population. More and more people getting vaccinated, more and more people getting boosted. We have some immunity from prior infection. But with certainty, we don't know.
Are we nearing a new phase?
I think we are in a new phase where we can start to getting back to doing many of the things that we have liked to do and where we have to remain vigilant.
Do you see COVID turning into something more like the flu as we move forward?
I do anticipate that this is probably going to be a seasonal virus. It may be seasonal around the time other respiratory viruses thrive. So that
the way the flu is?
The way the flu is.
Dr. Walensky says it's time for most of us to put the masks away.
I would say put your masks in a drawer, anticipate you may need them again, and hope that we don't.
people are going to welcome that advice.
Don't shred them.
Just as many kids are returning to classrooms without masks, some data suggests the vaccine for children is less effective now. Though the CDC recommends kids 5 to 11 get vaccinated, Florida's Surgeon General said the state will officially recommend against the vaccine for healthy children.
Should parents of 5 to 11-year-olds be concerned that the vaccine their kids got isn't good enough?
I would say parents 5 to 11 should anticipate that their child may need a booster dose and get their kids vaccinated.
Have you let parents down?
This has been a hard time. Uncertainty is hard. And if you want anything as a parent, you want certainty that your kid's going to be okay.
I can see that it almost looks like it pains you as a parent.
Yeah, well, yes.
You can relate.
Absolutely. When my kids ask me about something that they may or may not be able to do, an event that they may or may not be able to have or go to, I feel that.
If you were a betting person, Dr. Walensky, would you think that we're likely to have more variants? Or is it just impossible to say?
It is impossible to say. We can decrease our chances by getting more and more people vaccinated.
Just a year ago, the CDC had insufficient data and sequencing capabilities. Now it says it's ramped up genetic sequencing to help detect new variants.
Does the CDC have enough tools now to recognize a new variant popping up in the U.S.?
We feel pretty confident in the level of detection, being able to detect a new variant.
New hope as the nation enters a new chapter.
I also asked Dr. Walensky about all the uncertainty that parents feel right now, and I asked her, have they let parents down, especially parents of younger children? Her answer to that was, it's hard as a parent. She is a parent herself. She said it's hard when there's so much uncertainty and you can't give your children certain specific answers because the science just doesn't know. For example, we don't know if another variant is coming. Back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you so much. Let's bring in Dr. Amish Adult for more on this. He's a senior scholar at Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Doctor, good to have you with us. We just heard how even mild COVID cases can impact the brain. What stood out to you in this British study, and do you think we're taking long COVID seriously enough?
The biggest takeaway from this study is that they did it very rigorously. They used scans on the same people. They had scans from their biobank from a couple of years before, and then they rescanned those other people after they had COVID, and they removed some of the people that were hospitalized and had more severe COVID. And what they saw was that there was shrinking of brains that was faster than would be anticipated with normal aging. So I think this gives us a clue that there is something going on with the nervous system and COVID. How common this is, because this was a study where most of the people were were almost 60 years old. The average age was around 58. So how much that applies to younger people, that remains to be seen. And also, they didn't have information about the symptoms. And we know that a lot of people in those early days lost taste and smell, and that might have caused atrophy of those regions of the brain. So I think we need to know more, but this clearly shows that there is an ability of this virus to cause brain loss at a faster rate than expected in certain individuals.
All right, Doctor. Now, a new report showing just how much COVID is still impacting our daily lives, despite, of course, the relaxation of protocols, less masks, less vaccine mandates. Now, the study found COVID is still causing a, quote, intolerable level of death, 10 times higher than other respiratory infections. But first, I want to play something that CDC Director Rochelle Walensky had to say about the future of COVID, and we'll talk on the other side.
I do anticipate that this is probably going to be a seasonal virus. It may be seasonal around the time other respiratory viruses thrive, so that would be the way the flu is.
So that there was, of course, from Kate Snow's interview, as we just saw. So are we at the point yet to return to normal? I mean, I just mentioned that COVID death toll being at that intolerable level, but here we are comparing it to the flu. Put it in context for us. Where are we at? Can people ease up on their concern about this?
So you kind of have to separate the population into two groups. Those people who are fully vaccinated, high-risk individuals who are boosted, and people who are unvaccinated, because it's still the majority of people that are dying that are not vaccinated. So we still have this two-track pandemic. And yes, the number of deaths is still is still too high at 1,500 or so per day. But those deaths are occurring in the unvaccinated population. So that tells me that if you're someone that's fully vaccinated, if you're up to date on your with your boosting, then you're somebody that's got really nothing to fear from COVID-19. You're not going to be one of those people that lands in the hospital or compromises hospital capacity. And in that sense, I think you can go back to normalcy. But if you're somebody that's not vaccinated, especially with any high-risk conditions, this is a virus that's always going to be a threat to you. And that group of the population is not going to be able to go back to normal until they get vaccinated or until they get immunity. But overall, the country is in a much better place to manage COVID-19 because so many people have been vaccinated, so much immunity is in the population, antivirals, monoclonal antibodies, rapid tests, that we can manage this like other respiratory viruses. So that's kind of the paradox that we sit in.
Dr. Adult, we've seen several cities roll back these COVID protocols with a caveat: be prepared to break out the mask if another variant emerges. Dr. Walensky just said, keep it in your drawer. How hard, though, is it going to be to get people to wear masks again?
I do think that people have gotten very fatigued with masks, and we do have a lot of better tools than masks now with antivirals and monoclonals, like I mentioned. And I think what we'll have to see is how the CDC guidance evolves, because to me, the threshold would be you're starting to see hospitals get into crisis again. And I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen because there's so much immunity in the population that whatever new variant emerges, yes, it may spread, yes, it could be disruptive, but will it be able to cause the same damage to our healthcare systems? I think will increasingly not be the case because of where we are with COVID-19. So we'll see how masks come about in the future. I think there'll be recommendations for high-risk individuals in certain situations, but I don't think you're going to see universal centralized masking be something that they pull back out.
All right, Dr. Amish Adult, some good news mixed in there with some scary stuff. Thank you so much. We always appreciate when you join us.
Thank you.
Time to get a check on your morning news now weather. Bill
Cairns joins us now with the latest. Hey, Bill, good morning.
Good morning. Let's relive yesterday. You know, sunshine, 70, 80 degrees. Yeah. I know. It was beautiful, but it was very unusual. It was the warmest ever on that date in many areas. All the little red dots you see on the map from New York to Allentown, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. Everyone broke or at least tied their record highs yesterday. And in D.C., it was 80 degrees. Central Park, New York was 74 degrees. But that changed with those thunderstorms that went through last night, along with the high winds. There's still some thousands of people without power because of that. And today will actually be temperatures more what you'd expect, 40s and 50s throughout the region. So here comes the next storm down in the Gulf of Mexico. It's bringing rain early today, right through the morning into the afternoon into Louisiana. A lot of heavy rain for your evening commute from Jackson to Memphis, all through northern Mississippi, Alabama into Tennessee. And then tonight, this mess moves into the mid-Atlantic region. And yes, it is cold enough for snow in Pennsylvania, southern New York, maybe Philadelphia and New York City. We'll even see some snowflakes, Hartford and Boston. So you go from 70s and 80s to snow. That's March for you. The one good thing about this storm is it will bring some much needed rainfall to areas of the panhandle of Florida, which have had a couple swamp fires they've been dealing with. The biggest one is the Chippewa complex, only 10% contained. An inch of rain is forecast there, so that's good. And here's that snowfall forecast for the Northeast. Again, Philly, Baltimore, D.C., the I-95 corridor, the roads will be wet. We do not expect it to accumulate. You will see snowflakes. You have to be north of that area to get the accumulating snows. The highest totals will be the Poconos, the Catskills, and the higher terrain there of southern portions of New England. So we'll watch that for tomorrow. Otherwise, cold is the rule. 26 in Billings, 37 Minneapolis, Dallas only 50 degrees, San Antonio 55, and then another Arctic blast behind it. And that one will head to the East Coast this upcoming weekend. So I hope you enjoyed the warmth yesterday. It's going to be a while till you feel anything like that.
Oh, my goodness. Winter. Yeah. It's winter. All right.
I was like, ooh, maybe it is spring. It's March. That kind of makes sense.
Spring teas.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks, Bill. And coming up, women of Ukraine taking up arms and fighting for their country.
When we return, how this war is giving this International Women's Day a different meaning. You're watching Morning News Now. Today is International Women's Day. It's normally a celebration aimed at recognizing the incredible achievements of women all around the world.
Well, this year that has even more significance in Ukraine and around the world as we watch women take up arms to defend their country or sacrifice everything to get their families to safety. Joining us now is Ukrainian Parliament member Oleksandra Ustanova. She's in D.C., where last week she met with lawmakers to advocate for more sanctions against Russia and to push the U.S. for more actions to support Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining us today. So first, just what does this day mean to you in the context of what's happening in your country right now as you witness many Ukrainian women take up arms, volunteer to fight back against Russia's invasion in your country?
Well, to be honest, this International Women's Day is something that was left for us from the former USSR, because in the USSR culture, they were trying to replace all the religious or other holidays with some communist ones. And that's how this day came up. So I would say the younger generation is not very supportive of celebrating this day. It's more for the older generation. But taking into account everything that is going on into the country, of course, even women sometimes just call each other to support and to say that we're strong and we can keep on fighting, because a lot of women, to be honest, like I saw my friend posting a photo a few days ago that he came to the Polish border and he lives in the United States now to pick up his nieces and nephews, and his sister just gave her kids to him and said she's coming back because she's going to protect the city. So it's been a fight for all of us. It's not only for the men to protect the country, it's also, unfortunately, women who picked up guns and said, we're going to protect.
I mean, yeah, Alexandra, along those lines, there's a report out by the New York Times today that highlights the dangers women in Ukraine are facing as the fighting intensifies. I mean, tell us more about how women in Ukraine are doing, as some choose to evacuate and others do choose to stay behind, like you just said, and fight.
Well, to be honest, a lot of Ukrainian women and kids are held hostages right now. For example, the city of Mariupol, which is almost 400,000 people, is totally encircled by the Russian army. And we had been trying for several days to talk Russians into letting us take the women and children out of the city, because they literally don't have any electricity, heat, and it is really cold in Ukraine at the moment. And they don't have, unfortunately, any food left. So people are literally starving to death. Children are starving to death. And we are trying to get anybody to provide the enforcement of these safe corridors for women who want to actually go out with their children, but Russians would not let them do that. I've been talking to my colleague. She's a member of the parliament, and she's the mother of 6 kids. And her husband is now fighting in the territorial defense not far from Hostomel, which is one of the hottest spots not far from Kyiv and the Kyiv suburbs at the moment. And she's trying to evacuate women and children from there. And I was literally crying yesterday when she was telling us how sometimes they get only 10 minutes of the corridor and people are running to the car with their children, with their families. I mean, with adult people who cannot walk on their shoulders just to get them out from that hell. Unfortunately, some of them cannot make it, because if they don't make it in 10 minutes, the Russians just start killing them. You know, elder people who actually passed World War II and are still alive say that even the fascists, the Nazis, did not do anything like that, just shooting down kids and women on the street, trying to escape that hell.
Alexandra Ustinova, thank you so much for talking about this, for coming on, for your time this morning. So terrible to hear about so much of this, and we know that you're working hard here for your people. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, international leaders are continuing to work toward a solution to the crisis in Ukraine. Just moments ago, China's president held a call with several European leaders.
NBC News correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer is in Beijing with more on that call and a look at how the rest of the world is reacting to the events in Ukraine. Janice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. Well, we had this call just in the last moments with China's President Xi Jinping. There has been a lot of talk about China's position on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Xi had a video phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron, as well as German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. They discussed a range of issues, including the pandemic, but of course, Ukraine was the main topic. Xi said that China deplores this renewed violence in Europe. He urged talks and said that China would coordinate with countries like France and Germany, but he didn't suggest that he or the leadership here would urge Russia to stop. Hundreds of Russian tourists on holiday in Cuba were returned home. They were delayed because of closed airspace. About 300 people boarded an Aeroflot plane that was sent to Veradero to evacuate Russian nationals. And there will be more repatriation flights to Cuba because there are an estimated 5,500 Russian tourists on the island right now. And Angelina Jolie is in Yemen to meet with people who were forced to flee their homes because of conflict. The actor and filmmaker is also a UNHCR special envoy. She drew parallels with what's happening in Ukraine, where now 2 million people have been displaced by the invasion. On her Instagram account, she said that she was in Yemen to show support for people and also to stress the fact that all civilian victims of violence deserve equal compassion. And that, guys, is a look at your headlines.
All right, Janice McAfee, thank you so much.
Coming up on more news now, more fallout over the war in Ukraine. Shell announces it's no longer buying Russian oil as gas prices soar to record highs. More on that announcement and what it means.
Plus, the U.S. is collecting evidence of possible Russian war crimes in Ukraine. So what have they found so far, and what are they looking for? We'll break down the evidence next. You're watching Morning News Now. The U.S. is collecting evidence of possible Russian war crimes, and the world is watching, with the International Criminal Court opening its own investigation, specifically on the weapons Russia might be using. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson explains exactly what those weapons are.
This is brutality. This is inhumane.
The head of NATO on Friday claiming Russia is using so-called cluster bombs in its invasion of Ukraine. And the international NGO Human Rights Watch saying Russia killed civilians by firing these bombs into Kharkiv, accusing them of violating international humanitarian law. They cited a 2010 UN treaty banning these weapons, although it's not signed by Russia, Ukraine, or for that matter, the United States. But what exactly are cluster bombs? Basically, they're rockets that open up in the air and let out smaller bombs that can hit a bunch of targets at once over a big area. But a lot of times they don't explode when they hit the ground. So rescue teams like this one in Syria have to clean up a threat that can last for a long time after the fighting. Russia's also accused of using vacuum bombs, sometimes called thermobaric weapons, like these the country has used in practice. Basically, it sucks up all the oxygen where it's detonated, creating a huge fireball and devastating the area. The Kremlin denies using any cluster or thermobaric weapons, and a senior U.S. defense official says they cannot confirm or deny their use. But some experts, looking at the devastation, call it like they see it.
When you fire artillery into residential areas, when you bomb civilians, when you attack a nuclear power plant, you are committing war crimes.
And Ukrainians are working to find that evidence, with visual teams sifting through the damage to try and make a case against Russia at the International Criminal Court.
Now, don't expect a quick resolution from these UN courts. Resolving those cases can take years. Russia would also have to show up for those hearings, and so far they have refused. Now, the conflict in Ukraine is continuing to wreak havoc for the world's energy prices. However, the financial markets may have a slight recovery today.
More on that, let's check in with CNBC's Silvana Henao, who joins us with more. Silvana, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. Wall Street will look to recover some of yesterday's steep losses, which were sparked largely by worries about slowing economic growth in the wake of the war in Ukraine. The Dow tumbling nearly 800 points, the S&P 500 suffering its worst decline in more than a year, and the Nasdaq sliding into bear market territory, or down 20% from its record high set in November. Oil prices are rising again after pulling back from 13-year highs above $130 a barrel yesterday. The government saying diesel prices hitting a record high of $4.84 a gallon just in the last week, while AAA says gas in the U.S. is averaging $4.16 a gallon nationwide. Shell says it will stop buying Russian oil and natural gas. The energy giant will also shut down its service stations, jet fuels, and other operations in the country amid international pressure for companies to cut ties over the invasion of Ukraine. Shell's CEO apologizing over the decision last week to purchase a cargo of Russian oil to be refined into gasoline and diesel, saying it wasn't the right move. And President Biden is expected to sign an executive order this week to mark the first step toward regulating cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. This comes as the administration has raised concerns in recent weeks about Russia's use of cryptos to evade the impact of sanctions in response to its invasion of Ukraine. The order will detail what government agencies do to develop policies and regulations on digital currencies. Guys?
All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
Thank you. And coming up, a heartbreaking look at the human side of war.
Families across Ukraine torn apart by the violence. NBC's Lester Holt shares his thoughts from the Ukrainian border. Finally this hour, a look at the lives turned upside down by war.
NBC Nightly news anchor Lester Holt shares his thoughts from Western Ukraine, where refugees are streaming to the border for safety.
As I stepped among the tide of war refugees making their way west to the border, I couldn't help looking into faces and wondering what their Monday looked like even 2 weeks ago, before the war began in earnest. Did they have important business meetings, parent-teacher conferences to attend, dental appointments, oil changes? You know, the things we do. And now everything has changed for them. Their country is being dismantled, and so is a piece of our world and security. Maybe the one thing we cannot afford to be at this moment in history is mere spectators. Instead, we have the power to be witnesses. And you can trust we will continue to tell this story.
And Lester Holt is taking us inside Ukraine for an hour-long special report. You can watch it tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on NBC News Now.
That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.